Welcome back to the Deliberate Exchange, where we go deep into the work of actual transformation, where we want to live fully and we have to face ourselves fully. And so today I want to talk about what I think that so many of us struggle with, but we rarely admit it, and that's about anger. So recently I've facilitated group calls where the prevailing emotion was anger. There was anger at the world. There's a lot of that happening right now. There's anger at people. And most significantly, there's anger at ourselves. And we don't talk about this enough. Especially as women, we're taught that anger is something to be ashamed of. That if we express it, we're too much, or worse, we're weak. But let's be real for a second. Anger doesn't just disappear when we suppress it. It ends up festering, and it shows up in ways that keep us small, whether it's through self-sabotage, resentment, stress eating, or numbing with alcohol. I know this because I've lived it. So I carry my own fair share of anger. Sometimes I'm angry that I had to quit drinking. I'm angry that those I expected to fight for me didn't. I'm angry that I lost my stepdad and that I felt denied in my grief. I'm angry that I had to rebuild myself alone. I'm angry that there's still work to do. But here's the thing, anger is energy, and it doesn't just go away because we ignore it. And if we don't give it a productive outlet, it ends up turning toxic. And it's not just us. Our kids and the people around us are learning how to handle anger from us. So to give you some context, the other week I watched a 12-year-old hockey goalie have a complete meltdown in the middle of the rink, slamming their helmeted head into the crossbar, kicking at the air, yelling at themselves. And I felt that, like I watched it all unfold, and I was feeling that deep in my soul, because I know exactly what that kind of frustration feels like. I grew up watching anger explode. Holes punched in walls, wrenches flying when things went wrong. Losing meant failure, and failure wasn't an option. And so when anger came, it wasn't just frustration. It was reaction. Yelling, hitting things, smashing my fists into fence boards. And it took me years to unlearn that. And I'm, of course, still working on it. The goalie last week, they're going to remember that moment forever. And it's not just about the loss, but it's like the shame of the meltdown, the feeling of being completely out of control. And if no one helps them to understand that emotion, here's what likely is going to happen. They're going to start dreading the games, not just because they don't love hockey anymore, but because they fear losing and how he's going to react. And then they're going to maybe tie their entire self-worth into the performance, thinking that a bad game equals I'm not good enough. And then it might develop into unhealthy coping mechanisms, like bottling it up, quitting altogether, or numbing his frustration. Now, does that sound familiar? This is what happens when we never learn how to process losing, failure, or big emotions. We end up carrying it into adulthood, and into our work and into our relationships, and then it starts impacting our health. Now let's talk about women's anger for a second, because when men get angry, they're seen as passionate and competitive and leaders. But when women get angry, we're called hysterical, dramatic, too much. And so we internalize it. We shut down, or we cry when we're mad, which is so annoying when you're in the middle of an office with your bosses, typically all male in my experience, and now you're crying and they think that you're just like a mess or on your period or something. And so we bottle it up, or we run to the washroom and cry there. But then it starts to manifest as stress, chronic illness, tension in our bodies. And then it'll sneak into how we show up in our relationships, our self-worth. Now, the first step to processing anger in a healthy way is awareness. Like, you can't change what you don't acknowledge. And then the second step is finding meaningful ways to actually release it, to discharge the emotional reaction. And so here are two powerful tools and ways that help me shift my relationship with anger. These are still things that I do to this day when anger comes up, because it's not something that you put on pause and you don't ever have to experience again. So the first one is raging on the page. Now, this is what I learned from Gabby Bernstein. So what you do is you get some time, and I encourage you to ask for the time that you need from your spouse, your family, whatever that might look like. Grab your journal and set a timer for 20 minutes. And then I want you to complete the sentence, I am angry about, because, with. And then write nonstop. Do not censor yourself. Do not feel bad if you're writing that you're angry with your spouse or your kids or your parents or the world or hell, Donald Trump, whatever you need to write. Just write. And then I want you to listen to binaural beats for 15 to 20 minutes afterwards. And optionally, you can safely burn what you just wrote as a bit of a symbolic release. Now, what this exercise is doing is it's giving your anger somewhere to go. It's like shining a light into the dark corners of your mind, and that's going to help reduce its grip over you. And sometimes, like, what happens with me is when I do this exercise, the thing that I think I'm angry about is never the thing that I'm angry about. And there's some kind of core need that I'm needing to work on or fulfill or soothe myself. And I'm trying to outsource it by using somebody else and kind of projecting my anger. The second way, surprise, surprise, breath work. Now, our bodies store unprocessed anger. And breath work allows us to release that without needing words. Because sometimes when we're angry, we lack the words. Through conscious breathing techniques, we can literally move that stuck emotion out of our system. And that's going to create the space for calm, clarity, and peace. And I've seen how powerful this work is firsthand, and it's why I teach it. It's why it's a full module in my courses, because without learning to regulate our nervous system, everything is going to feel like an uphill battle. It's like having a million tabs open and you're trying to focus on a Word document, but you see all of the other tabs. If we want to change how the next generation handles anger, we have to do the work first. I watched my best friend doing this with her 2 kids, and especially her 2-year-old, who's learning all about her emotions and finding her voice, and everything is like a net new experience. And when she has moments where she's melting down, what my best friend has been doing is creating space. She'll step away where she can to collect herself. She breathes. And so she's teaching her kids that frustration isn't something to fear, it's something to work with. When we regulate ourselves, we end up changing the game. We're teaching our kids, everyone around us, that emotions aren't the enemy. They just need to be understood. We show them that losing is not a defining failure. And then we end up creating homes and relationships and communities where big emotions aren't scary. They're actually very manageable. And let's be honest, most of us weren't raised with this kind of emotional intelligence. Like, I'm just 5 years into learning this. So learning it now so we can pass it down isn't just helpful, but it's necessary. Now, if this resonated with you, I challenge you to take a breath, to recognize where your anger might be lingering. Try one of these exercises this week when anger seems to or might come up. And if you need support in this, please reach out. This is the work that I do. This is the work that literally changes everything. And if this resonated, please like, share, subscribe, download this episode, leave me a review, send me a message. Let me know what your thoughts are on anger, how it's impacted you, how you can shift it, and how you can alchemize anger. And in the meantime, breathe it in, be deliberate, and please be good to yourself.